Hi folks. This week on the podcast, I talked with Johnny Adair. One of the most notorious loyalist leaders, Adair and his Sikh company took the fight to Republicans, which saw a significant loss of lives, which were primarily Catholic civilians. Adair now lives in Scotland, and in this episode he talks about his life and how he fought back against Republican paramilitaries. This is also the final episode in Season 6 of the podcast, so please do stick around at the end, where I'll give an update regarding the future of the podcast. So enough of that, let's get into it. This is the Troubles Podcast, a podcast about the violence and bloodshed that occurred in Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland and Great Britain, as multiple sides and organisations waged a bloody conflict over the status of Northern Ireland.
Yeah, right.
Okay, brilliant. So, Johnny, let's hit it off. Where were you born?
I'm Belfast. In the Old Lodge Road, 1963.
You're not really from a family like... I had a UVF guy on there a while ago who was from like a staunch loyalist family, but it wasn't really in your background, was it?
No, my family were not politically motivated at all. No, they were. I was the only one out of the family that got involved with it, like the politics of Northern Ireland.
What was it like being an early teenager at the time?
My life as a teenager was just typical sectarian street clashes with Catholics in Belfast city centre. Every night we'd went down. We were skinheads at the time, and the objective of it all was to fight with Catholics. I mean, fist fights, stones, battles, and that was like what we would call, that was our playground every night, 7 days a week. We got the buses in the town to City Hall, and we fought with Catholics from the markets, Catholic skinheads. And then on the way back home up to Shankill, we fought at the Catholics at Unity Flats at the bottom of Shankill, Peelers Hill. That was our life as teenagers.
Where does it come from? Do you make a bunch of friends with people and they're like, these guys are trying to attack us?
No, it was just Belfast itself and the Troubles. I don't believe that had I been a bit older and it was in the 60s before the Troubles, I don't believe that we would have had these here sectarian clashes at nights. It was the Troubles, 1969, the civil rights, and then the Troubles, the street riots, and then the burning out of homes on both sides of the divide, Catholics and Protestants. I mean, that's where the hatred and the dislike for your Catholics. And
around this time, did you have any idea as to like the UDA or the UVF, or not so much?
No, around about that time. Oh yes, we were aware of the paramilitaries, but when we were teenagers, when we say 14, 15 or 16, but I mean, paramilitaries would not have been interested, people at our age, because you were too young to join the paramilitaries. You had to be 18. So it was when we became that age that we became involved in paramilitaries. But I mean, all that craft, if you want to call it, came from running battles with Catholics on a daily, nightly basis.
And when did you start the band?
When we were 17, 18. Again, that was to do with the skinhead movement at the time. There was a big skinhead movement at the time. There was Catholic skinheads and there was the Protestant skinheads. And we would have clashed every night. We would have had running fist fights every night at Belfast City Centre, City Hall. And that's where the disliking for Catholics as a whole, because at that stage, we would have been segregated from Catholics. When we were that age, it was our areas were completely Protestants and Catholics areas were completely Catholic. So we had this burning dislike against Catholics.
Yeah. And did you have that kind of like, you know, they're invading you, or was it more we meet here in the middle ground and we fight it out?
No, it was just to get into the town, and there was arranged fights. The market skinheads would have come round the City Hall and we would have edged over. And then a running battle would have pursued, maybe 20 or 30 of us on each side. And we done this for a good part of our teenage years. Every night, Belfast City Centre, on a Saturday, where hundreds of skinheads would have went into the town, and you would have clashed, you'd have came across a crowd of Catholic skinheads, Catholics, and you'd have ended up having the pitch running battle with them.
Because you always hear like there was, the punk music and stuff in Belfast during the Troubles. A lot of the times there was no divides. The music was its own thing. But that wasn't necessarily something you saw.
No, because we were far right, we were right wing, we were members of the National Front, the British movement. So that's where our bond was, and that's what we supported, and that's what most of the skinhead movement supported. National Front at the time and British movement at the time.
That's Combat 18, is it? Is that the same thing, kind of?
Yes, and National Front, we were all signed up members to National Front, and then we shifted to the British movement.
And was that basically just against foreigners, and then it kind of pushed into against Catholics?
It was basically just part of the skinhead fad. I mean, if you were a skinhead, it was macho to be National Front or British movement. That was part of the skinhead. It just came hand in hand with it. At the time, it made sense to us. We were against the blacks, we were against the Muslims, etc., etc. But it was just part of the skinhead movement.
Yeah.
And it was if you were a skinhead, basically a Protestant, a loyalist, a Protestant skinhead, National Front, I mean, that was your badge of honour, did you just say? And that's the type of badges we would have worn, National Front, and T-shirts with the emblem on, things like that. It was just, we weren't educated till it, we were just young boys.
So then you're 19, and how did you get the attention of the UDA then? I heard something, they threatened to kneecap you or something is what the story goes.
Well, it didn't threaten to kneecap me. It was around about 1984, 85, or even in the hunger strike time, I think, it goes far back as that, when the Troubles, because of the hunger strikers and the hunger strikers dying, there was violence, Republican violence on the streets, and it was serious, dangerous times. And fearful times for loyalist Protestants in communities where we lived. So it was round about that time that we felt that we needed to do something to prevent which we thought was getting out of hand, like the street riots and the what they were doing on the aftermath of every time a hunger striker died. So the violence erupted, and we felt intimidated and feared. So it was around about them times that we brought ourselves forward to and at that time it was the UDA. That's where we joined, because that was a legal organisation at the time. The UVF was always an illegal organisation, but we preferred to go with the UDA because of the areas we came from. It would have been prominently UDA.
Yeah, so and I think wouldn't the UVF have kind of looked down on you a bit, and there was a bit of friction, I think, or between the two communities.
With respect to UVF in them times, because I considered joining the UVF, because in them times the UVF was a military organisation who was engaging in military activity. Now, I'm talking about hunger strike times in 83 and then in the early 80s. The UDA militarily never really existed. Just the odd military operations were conducted. But the UVF was constantly engaged in activity against the Republican enemies. And it was then that I was intrigued by what the UVF was doing for our country and for defending the way they were defending our people and attacking members of the Republican movement. So I would have considered it an early stage in my life of joining the UVF, but it subsequently turned right that I joined the UDA.
And is it a bit like, joining the provisional IRA where you get like green booked and you get all this sort of training or whatever, or not so much? It's more a bit loose.
And it was nothing like that whatsoever. You got to remember, the UDA was a legal organisation. You were allowed to be a member of that organisation at the time. So there was none of this here illegal activity. I mean, it was like a Boy Scout movement, if I'm being honest. Yeah. Where you went to a meeting once a week and you paid dues. Simple as, that was it.
But then for you, the early days of the UDA, I think, was it, you were I think you were young enough, so they were sending you out kind of rioting and stuff.
At them times, you move on a couple of years, 1985, I think it was, the Anglo-Irish Agreement, when, yes, the UDA would have been involved in street protests, and that would have resulted in riots. And then it ended up turning into, because the police we believed were being, the RUC at the time, were being heavy-handed against loyalists. So it ended up that the police men living in loyalist areas were actually burned out. I'm sure you can remember that. There was scores of policemen drove out and run out of Protestant areas. Because remember, the RUC was a predominantly Protestant force, and some of their members did live in the outskirts of our areas. Maybe not in the heart of the Shankill, but maybe family members would have, and them homes would have been targeted because we felt, yeah, going to treat us like us and come home.
Wasn't it the Anglo-Irish Agreement? I think a lot of unionists were afraid that the governments are going to strike a deal behind the people's backs. And I think that was where a lot of the violence in 1985 broke out then.
Yeah, and to be honest, there was a lot of hype. When you look at all protests, most of it was all hyped up by politicians. And then people like the UDA and the UVF were sort of way caught in the tail end. Don't get me wrong, it was our job to defend Ulster from a threat, from wherever the threat came from. But we were the ones on the ground who were dirty in our hands. The politicians was calling us to the top of the hill. We were going over the hill and they were coming back down. So the politicians at the time were guilty of a lot of inflammatory speeches. We were foolishly enough to fucking listen to them and go in.
Would you have been a fan of Paisley? Because Paisley, I feel like, was the master of the inflammatory stuff, you know?
Most young Protestants growing up were all fans of Paisley. Yes, we idolised Paisley because Ian Paisley, God bless him, he was a symbol of Protestantism at the time. And that was my opinion when I was a young boy, yes. We would have supported, well, I personally would have supported Paisley, as did thousands and thousands of other Protestants from my area.
So let's say you're in the UDA now, you join with your friends from kind of the groups that you were in before that. And then do you rise up the ranks, or do you kind of, how does it work there over, let's say, the late 80s into the early 90s?
Well, see, when I was in UDA, away at the early stages, it was non-militarily. And if I'm being brutally honest, the organisation then, which we were part of, was involved in petty crime and criminality. There was no such thing as like an armed wing of this group, to my acknowledgement anyway, until further. We were in the organisation for maybe a few years, involved in things like maybe street ran and hijack. I think the first thing that I can remember being charged with was hijacking a bus, and that was to do in support of segregation for loyalist prisoners. I remember hijacking a bus. I got charged with that. And then after that, we'd have been involved in minor things, which was nothing to do with that. It was just, if I'm being honest, it was just minor. It was like, as I said to you, it was like being a member of the Boy Scouts or the Boys Brigade. Only you pay your dues every week.
So when did that change then?
It changed for me personally as time went on, and I used to question myself and question our organisation and look at the UVF who were military engaged, and I'm talking about the area where I came from in West Belfast. Now, when I was growing up and all that street violence and was a member of the UDA, there was no military activity getting carried out by my organisation, which I was part of. However, the UVF was engaging heavily in military operations against the Republican enemies. So, and then I started, it was then that I wanted to I heard about the Ulster Freedom Fighters, and I heard that they were a military wing. But in West Belfast, you never, ever heard of them, and actually literally knew nothing about them because they were in non-real existence. And it wasn't until a very good friend of mine who was serving a lengthy prison sentence, and I knew him from years ago, and he was released from prison, and he was a UDA man. And with respect to this man, and the utmost respect, he personally became engaged in a military operation against Republicans, and he got my respect right away for that. Me and he actually was in the same team that I was in. It was C8.
Can you name him or no?
No, I can't name them all. No. He's still alive. That's there. But anyway, and the utmost respect for that man, and me and him became closer. And then he was a man at the time who would have had rank, and he took me under his wing, and me and him, I swore my allegiance to this man. It was through this man that I became militarily engaged and interested and involved. And to be honest, me and him never looked back. We took the organisation till, well, I'm talking about West Belfast, we took it to another level. The inspiration and the admiration that I had for this individual, still to this day, If I can do this and move out of jail, why is nobody doing it? And that was my same. I was going, well, why aren't we doing this? I'm willing to do it with people like you, because you're an inspiration to someone like me. Nobody else inspired me. Nobody else ever approached me and said, well, we'll do this, that, or the other. Nobody. Only this small. And that's where I became interested. And I knew then, I mean, here's someone that I can tune into who's interested in the military side of this organisation, and who's interested in what's going on in our communities and our country on a daily basis in the terms of the way that the IRA is attacking us. So this was a man who, he nurtured me, he brought me in, and that's where I became engaged. It was me as one individual.
Where did you want to take the fight? Did you want to take the fight to the IRA, to Republicans, to Catholics?
I would take it to wherever that man asked. I never questioned orders that he gave. That he was very militarily minded, and he was very specific in his targets. And that's what I liked about this man. That's what I liked about this man. He was a true, dedicated man who was hands-on, and who was tuned in, and who was dedicated to the cause. And his target had to be a target. And what I mean by that is IRA or INLA. None of this here. No, this man was, that's where my respect came from. And I just was in awe of this man.
So then, like, say if we're in the early 90s, then were you in charge, or were you kind of with a group where you were just taking part in different activities?
It was through this man I became very, very, very militarily involved. This man would have been more senior to me. This man would have had a senior military rank. But me and him were very, very close, and me and him, I would have volunteered for whatever he asked. I would have done of him and for the organisation. But he was a ranking member of the military wing of that organisation. And then him and others went to jail. And it left people like me who there was a vacuum needed filled, because all these leaders were sent to jail as a result of John Stevens. So we needed, the organisation needed rebuilt and restructured. And this is where I came in. And I came in with the experience that I learned from this individual, and the trust and the respect that we both had for each other. That set me up a few tiers, and I was able to, I don't know, but I was able to get rank, and I just started building from that rank, and there was no one holding me back. Here we had a clean slate, and we just had to start writing that slate, and that's what we done.
Did you guys have the same problem as the IRA as well, where around this time, getting handguns was impossible? Really difficult to find. Shorts, they would call them.
Well, see, to be honest, handguns, all weapons, well, if I'm being brutally honest with you, within loyalism, and I'm on record as saying this before too, I think, and to my understanding, the only fucking half-decent amount of weapons that the loyalists got was a shipment for South Africa.
Yeah.
And as soon as they hit the ground, all the UDA's weapons were seized straight away when they were being delivered. They were delivered, they landed, and 4 men went to pick them, and they were arrested en route. But they were obviously set up by members of the Inner Council. The then members of the Inner Council. These men were caught with all the assault rifles, all the burning pistols, and all the fragmentation, all the grenades for the UDA as a whole. We lost our full, complete cut of it.
Gee, so how did you have weapons then, or where did you get the weapons?
The weapons, it's small arms, but not loyalists. Speaking for the organisation that I came from, they weren't particularly well armed.
Yeah,
but they had enough rams that would carry out military operations. I mean, you got to remember at the time, when these military operations were going down, they weren't going on a regular basis or on a daily basis. It was maybe once in a blue moon until we came across, and then it was non-stop. And obviously you had to make contacts from wherever. And obviously key to your campaign was arming your men. And I think the company that I came from C Company, it's my understanding that they were the best armed and well-equipped company from the whole UDA organisation, UFF. They had the most sophisticated weapons and the most amount of weapons, but that was down to sheer hard work and great and determination and dedication from the leader.
A lot of your soldiers, a lot of RUC soldiers, I think houses were broken into and stuff.
Well, I mean, that would have been the case. A lot of, if I'm being brutally honest, a lot of, it's my understanding, a lot of loyalist, small handguns would have came from either break-ins of prison officers, RUC men's houses. That would have been, that would have been the norm, because you'd have had wee men who were housebreakers, but if they broke into a house belonging to, I came across a illegally held firearm, the best thing for him to do with that would go to the local paramilitaries and give it to them or sell it to them. And then that would have been him in their good books.
Yeah.
But just the royalists still have a problem as a whole of procuring weapons. I mean, we had great friends and comrades in Scotland who did supply and who did support source weapons. But anywhere further afield, like the rest of the United Kingdom, anything weapons were sourced and they tried to procure them. Sadly, they were caught, and so was the men. But that's down to the people who were at the top of our organisation at the time, who was passing on the information to the security forces.
So you're in the UDA, but then I guess because you guys want to make sure that the UDA doesn't get banned, that's where kind of the UFF comes in. You know, which is like a lot of the attacks then are attributed to the UFF, but they're carried out by UDA men. Is that kind of the way to explain it, or am I wrong?
No, you're wrong. The UFF and the UDA were two separate organisations. The UFF was the military wing of the UDA. The UDA had membership of thousands of men, right? The Ulster Freedom Fighters had a small, tight membership, and they were the men that would have carried out military operations. And I was blessed and C Company because of who I was, and because of obviously people like me and young men respected me. I drew lots of attention and recruits towards our ranks. So I was gifted when it came to volunteers, one to volunteer for the military wing of and the Ulster Freedom Fighters.
Why do you think they respected you? Is it the way you spoke?
Got off my back saying, done something. You remember, we were in the organisation for years and there wasn't a shot fired in anger for fucking years until this certain man who I referred to earlier on got released from prison. I mean, I can remember this man was in jail for 5 years. He got a 10-year sentence in for 5 years. And I can remember from 1979 right up until he got out, there was no military operations carried out by the UFF. There was one operation carried out in retaliation for the late Bucky McCulloch. There was a shooting carried out in retaliation when he was shot dead by the NLA. But other than that, there was no military activity coming from West Belfast. There was no such thing as UFF. There was military commanders in the UFF, but they never done nothing. And it was only when this individual was released from prison and he was good and he got things going. And that's where I came into it.
Yeah, that's kind of where C Company kicked off. Yeah.
1970, right up until 1985. No such thing as UFF in West Belfast.
I see here you had a feud with Eddie Copeland in the Provisional IRA.
Eddie Copeland, he was hell bent and trying to kill me. And equally, the UFF in West Belfast was hell bent and tried to kill him. And I think that they had a number of attempts on his life. Also, he and his men had a few attempts on my life. The two of us, he was a known IRA man in North Belfast, and I was a known loyalist in the Shankill. So I think that it was because of the prominences of both of us that made it more easier for both one or the other group to target each other. Now, there's Eddie Copeland, there's Johnny Adair. Eddie Copeland's driving this car, Johnny Adair's driving that car. Eddie Copeland lives here, Johnny Adair lives there. I think that's where the thing all that came from. And then, if I'm being brutally honest, I would have bumped into him a couple of times, and there would have been verbal exchanges, and then he just obviously back in the day, like Eddie Copeland was a hate figure to loyalists. He was an IRA leader. We hated that. We hated the IRA for what they were doing to our people. Surely, equally, Eddie Copeland would feel the same about me. He's a loyalist. He sees this. He's at the other. But when you scrape a service, you could probably say that he probably grudgingly respected me. Maybe he did. Maybe he hated my guts. I don't know. But You're in the IRA and you're engaging in a war, and you see loyalists engaging in coming off the IRA. I mean, surely, if they're soldiers at all, they would kind of grudgingly respect.
But would you have to have would you have to have security at your house? Do a lot of people know where you live? Like, what's it like living like that?
In my house, I had bulletproof windows throughout. I had steel doors and steel frames, reinforced frames. I wore body armour. I had security, bodyguards, and I had security was paramount for me because the Irish National Liberation Army, the professional IRA, and British intelligence all had attempts in my life, and they all came close to killing me.
I see there's one thing here that in 1992, or 1993, sorry, a fellow was killed in your house. Let me see, but he was killed by a British soldier.
No, that was my bodyguard. He wasn't killed, he was shot. It was the 14th Intelligence, right? The British military, undercover military. And they were stalking out my house, had on the surveillance. And we noticed them. And we went out and challenged him. And he opened up. They shot my big mate 3 times. His life was saved by a big chub key he had in his pocket. He shot him in the stomach and in the groin. He fired 11 rounds at him. So, I mean, they were sent in to kill me.
That's funny because it seems like they either approached you a lot of times or they were giving you some information as well. It seems like the army were maybe trying to get you on their side.
The ordinary guys on uniform, this cunt was undercover. He was 14 intelligent. That's just his job. Sneaky peeky, undercover, put me under surveillance, put people like me under surveillance. But your ordinary uniformed soldiers, they had nothing against me. I had nothing against them. And I felt sorry for them because unlike the IRA wanted them dead. I felt sorry for we British soldiers coming from England, Scotland, Wales, not having a clue about what was going on over there. And they were getting shot dead. Oh, they were coming into a concrete jungle, and it was a fucking big jungle, a dangerous jungle. And many of these young lads lost their lives. So they seen me as I was not a threat to them. I was on their side. But the IRA, they were killing them. The IRA wanted them dead. Johnny Adair didn't. Johnny wanted to protect them. Johnny sympathised with them. And they begged me for that because they knew, obviously they heard about me and that obviously they would have been briefed about me, about Johnny Adair, he's this and he's that, he's doing this. And they probably sympathised with that. They certainly.
Did they ever try and turn you, do you think?
The Special Branch tried to turn me a couple of times. In the interrogation centre, they offered me money. They offered me a woman. I never accepted it, thank the Lord. But many people did accept it. Many fucking people did. And I'm speaking about our organisation. Yes, hands up, hand in my heart, was the leadership level of the organisation I was part of. Awash with informers, absolutely. Hand on my heart, that's fact.
So how do you combat?
I'll tell you one instance, right? You're asking how do you combat it?
Yeah.
So I hated informers and I still do, right? So I was in jail and people around me knew that I hated informers. So I was in jail and I got this visit from, it later turned out that this man is in the public domain. He was a Special Branch, he worked for Special Branch. But this dirty rotten cunt came up to jail. He visited me one Friday afternoon. Good news for you, Johnny. What's that? He said, we've got a tout. I said, what? Because you just didn't get touts. It was hard to smoke the bastards out. So they didn't come forward till you say, here, I'm working. But this person did. This guy came forward to these and he came up to jail and told me, here's me. So I expected and assumed that these people would have took action against them all. This man told them everything. How he was recruited, where he was recruited, when he was recruited, and what they wanted him to do. Right? So they told him all this, and I'm fucking going, oh. So the guy goes back to myself, and you only had wee radios in the Crumlin Road jail then, and I was on the news every hour on the hour, expecting or thinking maybe is a better word to use, that these men would have done what you do with touts, because he's self right? So Friday goes by, Saturday goes by, Sunday, Monday goes by, Tuesday goes by, nothing on the news. So I think it's a visit on the Tuesday. I says, what happened to your man? Well, he says, do you know what the bastard's done? 2 members of the inner council and this man, I'll tell you his name anyway. I'll tell you the touch name anyway, Ken Barrett, right? And the other one was 2 members of the inner council. So do you know what they done? They give you me one £500 and told him to go to Scotland. Keep your head down, go to Scotland. So what does that tell me? Here's me thinking, what is going to happen to this lad? But again, Bart was an informer and that came out anyway. But the other two, 500 quid, get yourself to Scotland. The reality of that, the guy did go to Scotland, right? And obviously, there's people, dedicated men, who have long memories and who are dedicated and who hate informers. So this guy went to Scotland, lived his life, then peace came, the Good Friday Agreement. So he believed it was safe to turn. He spent the 500 quid they give him, right? And that was his safety. He returned. And obviously, the UFF went, put a bomb under his car and killed him.
Ken Barrett.
Not him. He was the one that came to jail and told me about the jail.
Okay.
He was one of the £500. Him and 2 inner council members. Give the wee lad £500. Thank you for telling us all that information about your comrades, and thank you for handing over them guns, because he admitted that he handed over certain weapons.
Yeah.
And them dirty bastards gave him 500 quid and told him to go to Scotland in case other men get you who's in jail. I foolishly believed, and I was waiting patiently all weekend. That happened. And then I got a phone to Tuesday and it says, them cunts give him 500 quid and tell him to go to Scotland. But he did come back some years later because it was peace and he thought it was safe. Even myself, like the life that I lived and the life that surely I would still have enemies there and surely people will still hate me. So I still have to take security precautions to know that you were a man who was at the nerve centre of the Ulster Freedom Fighters. Caused a lot of damage against what you call your enemies. So that would create a lot of hatred. And like that wee guy, surely some of them would have long memories too.
Let's say 93 then is when you became the leader of C Company. And that was also the year that we had the Shankill bomb.
Dirty, stinking, sectarian bomb in the middle of the Shankill killed innocent people. And it tried to justify by saying that they were after the leadership of the UFF. At the time, loyalism, both the UVF and the UDA, was hitting Republicans and the Nationalists hard. They really were. And the IRA felt that we're under pressure, we need to do something. And now them offices was there from the early 70s. Not once did Republicans touch them offices.
The offices above the fish shop for the prisoners, was it?
They had been UDA offices since the formation of the UDA. Not once was there an attack on them. But in 1993, at a time when loyalists was putting Republicans under pressure, they done a cowardly act of coming in this Shankill, blowing the face shop, which had turned to wreck the fucking offices up the stairs above it.
Do you think it was a tip-off that you were there?
I wasn't there, but... And the UFF leadership would not have met there. I was the leader then. So do you think I would have been stupid enough to have a military meeting? UFF wouldn't have been in an office. And if it did, it was on a personal fucking business. There would no UFF business conducted. None of us. Them officers would have been bugged from the British intelligence. So do you think that I would be stupid enough to go into them meetings and in them offices and conduct a UFF meeting where everything's being eavesdropped on? I was not in them offices, neither was the UFF. The UFF did not meet in them offices. Not in my fucking watch anyway. So wherever that information came from, it was totally fucking wrong. But obviously somebody with a friendly relationship to Republicans had pointed them in that direction and falsely told them that there was UFF, and there's no fucking UFF in there.
Well, it's funny because, say, I read a ton of books and all this sort of stuff, and you know, it's funny the things that get written down that now I'm talking to the primary source.
I'll believe it. Talk to someone who knows.
Yeah, exactly.
I would know.
That's why it's fascinating. Yeah,
know where operations are talked about. It's not UDA fucking headquarters. I know how operations are carried out. It's not within that fucking headquarters.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just my headquarters in name, UDA headquarters. Did I conduct any of my business in there? Absolutely zero.
So go on let's say Shankill happens, and then we know eventually this is going to lead to, I think, Grey Steel, I think. But what happens? Do you get people together? Do you meet somewhere you meet, which is not above a fish shop, and you make a plan? You're like, that's it. We have to hit them back for this. What happens?
Be honest with you, I was always planning against the enemies of Ulster. I never stopped. Did certain incidents make me more determined and make me more angry? Yes, it did. And that was one of them. That angered me and hurt me and hurt the Shankill, because that was a blatant sectarian bomb in the heart of loyalism, Protestantism. But let's justify it by putting it in UDA offices. That'll make it all the better for the IRA for propaganda. Oh, I was UDA offices, UEFF was beaten in there. No fucking way. But no, there was nothing. I was always driven to fight the IRA. I was always planning. I was always conducting. I never stopped. There was nothing that made me slow down.
Did you ever plan to attack a church? Because there was one source I read recently that was in the wake of the Shankill, there was talk of attacking a church.
I've read that story. But obviously, from my point, even if I knew anything about it, I couldn't say to you this was the case or it wasn't the case. I mean, because I couldn't comment on anything like that if I was aware of it. Well, all I'm saying is I didn't read that and saying they were in the aftermath and we're going to check some. I don't know. See, to be honest, from my point of view at the time, there was a lot of angry people, and I don't think, and I'm being honest here, I don't think anything would have been off level of doing because of the anger and because of the dirty deeds that they done, killing all them innocent women and children. So I don't think I would be shocked if members of the loyalist community had went in and done something with your just right. I wouldn't have been shocked at that because it couldn't have went any dirtier on what they done on that side of the road that day. So yes, these boys were ruthless. They were horrible, and that's why people like us had to stand up to them and give them a taste of their own medicine. And I think I was an instrumental part of that, but it came at a very, very high price for me. I mean, I've been to prison on multiple occasions. I've been shot. I've been bombed. My car's been bombed. My home's been bombed. I've been poisoned in jail. I've been shot in the head, shot in the side, multiple camps all my life that thank the Lord, I've fucking survived every one of them.
Not many did.
Good loyalists, man, UVF and UDA and LVF, and they're 6 foot under, dedicated, committed loyalists. They never got, I'm still alive. I've come through it. These poor fellas didn't come through it. They didn't. Okay, I'm not living in my homeland. I don't want to live there. But I'm alive and I've survived that conflict.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It wasn't a walk in the park. It was horrendous at times for me. And I mean horrendous.
But when I was asking you earlier, how do you deal with informers? I didn't quite mean like, what do you do with them? I mean, your guys, your C Company guys. Are we talking there's like, because I've done a whole episode on like Top Gun and everything. But was there, your unit, was it just 5 guys? Was it a small amount of people, or was C Company huge?
C Company's, the military wing of it was huge. Most of them men and the old boys in C Company wanted to be military because C Company were so active, and new men coming in, also young militants, wanted to be part of that, wanted to be part of the Stevie McCaig's and others. They wanted to be part of these men because these men show no fear, and these men are doing this not once in a blue moon. These men are doing this maybe twice in 24 hours, maybe fucking 5 times in 1 week. Young lads and from the areas, the communities, Lower Shankill and further afield, wanted to be part of that. And that's why we had such an influx of volunteers.
And was that where you met Top Gun, or were you friends with him before that?
I met Stevie. I met Stevie way years before.
Really?
We from the start right till sadly the finish.
I was just at his mural. I was at his mural there last week, and they've changed it now. It used to be his old, you know, the one with the necklace with the gun, but they've painted it now to like combat fatigue. So it's kind of it's updated.
I think they foolishly put a peacekeeping beret on him, like a blue beret, as a peacekeeping symbol. I know that's Stevie wouldn't have wanted that. Stevie wouldn't have wanted that.
Yeah.
But when you talk about me, Stevie, you're talking about that's the way most of them C company men, they were in the same power, Stevie. These men were all, they never questioned orders they gave, and they were all heavily involved in military operations. And I mean heavily involved. You just have to look at the statistics of all the operations and realise one or two men couldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
There had to be numbers of men. And then certain men would have went to jail, and the military operations still continued.
But was it, you know, I know there's a point to this where you're in charge, but like, are you the one making is everyone free to do whatever they want? If they want to do an attack, they'll say, hey, we want to do this attack.
Absolutely not. As my understanding, it would have gone through one man. And that's why I believe that C Company was very, very successful. Did the RUC have their heads against them? Of course it did. Casualties of war. Was C Company infiltrated at the highest level? I don't believe so. Were they infiltrated from the lowest level, £20 a week? Absolutely. Everybody is.
Yeah.
But I don't think they were right up at I don't think the special branch had them on right up at the top. What if they did, C Company wouldn't have got away with a fraction of what they got away with. But they were dead. I'm on record as saying this. 80% of all UFF operations came out of Lower Shankill C Company. And I'm talking about the whole province. That's a big percentage, 80%. Don't get me wrong, other brigades, with the utmost respect, they done, but they're nowhere on the same par as C Company.
I have here that the C Company is responsible for killing of around 40 Catholics. Is the estimated number, basically.
Yeah. Well, they were very active, very, very active indeed.
Did you have award ceremonies? Diamond Jubilee, is it?
That's still going, and it would never be the same. That was like C Company members all would have drunk in there. And yes, they would have had dues in there. And yes, the leader there would have been dues, and the leader would have got up once a year, twice a year, and presented plaques for your sterling work. That's what it actually said on your plaque. It did not say this is for shooting that or blowing that up. It was for your sterling work. And what the plaque wore was in recognition for the sheer great determination that volunteers were showing that organisation throughout the year, from year to year. Yes, did Stevie get one? Yes, he did. Lots of them fair players in C Company got them.
I think that's where the nickname came from, the Top Gun nickname.
No, I know where it came from. It wasn't there.
Just to add some context, here Adair is talking about the book Mad Dog, The Rise and Fall of Johnny Adair and C Company by David Lister and Hugh Jordan. It was the main source for the previous biography episode on Adair, and in the book the authors spoke to a man with the cover name Pete, who said that he was in the UDA and he shed light on the actions of Adair and McKeag. Adair is not a big fan of Pete in what he said to the authors.
And again, I was listening to one of your podcasts last night, and this angers me, and this is down till, and I guess I know who it was. Again, it goes back to that stupid fucking book, and you have a fucking plank who's probably never held I know he has held a gun before, but he's contributing heavily to that book. And I listened to your podcast last night where they had wee Stevie, God rest his cat the socks, implicated him in 5 murders, and I know that he had nothing to do with M5.
Really?
I'm not saying Stevie was a cracker operator. So was most of the C Company men. But in your podcast, but it's not your fault. He coming out fucking he's called himself Pete. We all know who he is. He hadn't a fucking clue. And he's implicated wee Stevie on 5 murders that wee Stevie had nothing whatsoever to do with. So that things like that bug me, that you have somebody who's a nobody talking about stuff he doesn't even know about and getting it 100% wrong. This is a fucking UDA man. A man who was never militarily engaging in what we were doing. But yet of all, he felt it deemed to go into that book and wrongly accused wee Stevie of 5 separate murders.
Do you want to name the guy, or no? Will I just go back and check my sources?
Well, he called himself Pete.
Please.
We all know who he is. Embarrassment for him to even think they got. Now, that was his thinking, because he seen the news. He heard something on the news, and he would have thought, that was, he done that, he done that, he done that. 5 I went from 2 last night, and we Stevie had not much more to do with them ones. And Stevie was military active right up to his feet, and he was very, very, very active. And indeed, he's up there. Stevie was that's the way C Company was. There was not equally all them there wee volunteers who were engaged in military activity. They were all very, very, very active. You couldn't just pick one out and say he's done this or he's done that. They men collectively done. They were the backbone of the UFF, and the backbone. And I don't mean 1 or 2 of them or 3 of them. A good 6, 7, or 8 of them. They were the backbone.
And was it targeting Catholics, or was it targeting Republicans, or did it matter too much?
Well, when you see the IRA doing sectarian bombs, so and it's past experience from both the UVF and the UDA will retaliate likewise. That was the sectarian bombing. That was the sectarian shooting, killing the Protestant or whatever. So, and there's incidents where the UVF and the UDA has done likewise, just to strike fear into their communities, the way the IRA was striking fear into our communities. And you talk about Darkley, you talk about T-Bond, you talk about Kings Mills, you talk about one of the worst Shankill bombs straight home to our own road. They are all blatantly sectarian murder killings right throughout. They don't come much more any sectarian than that. 10 men at King Mill, 10 men of T-Bond, the dropping well, not the dropping well, and the fucking the parishioners in the church, the fucking Darkley. Parishioners praying to God, singing wee songs on a Sunday night, and they go in and brutally murder them because they're Protestants. So, are you going to get a response from loyalist paramilitaries? Are you going to get a fascist response? Absolutely. And that response from the loyalists will be the intending to make them fucking not support what the IRA is and the our people. So you just can't point the finger and say every organisation involved in that conflict were involved in sectarian murders. Every one of them. The IRA, the ILA, the UVF and the UDA. Absolutely.
And the highest death toll was civilians. Not Protestant, not Catholic, just civilians.
It was horrible, and the sad thing about it was, why the fuck did the politicians not do in 1969 at the birth of the fucking civil rights? How could they not got around a table then before it got out of hand? Surely if they were going to do it 20 years later, 30 years later, why couldn't they have done it then when they seen the cracks coming? Right, there's going to be trouble here. Why didn't they fucking sit round there and fucking drink tea and coffee and say, like, let's get a solution here? But they let it stew. And yes, I was part of it, but I felt I had to be part of it.
Yeah.
Because felt that the UDR and the NRUC weren't having great successes against them. Well, of course they were having successes, but the IRA was still able to come and do what they were doing to our people, to our towns, and to our villages, blowing us to fucking smithereens. They were blowing in my head. They were trying to blow us in the United Ireland. They were killing and slaughtering as many people they can, and they're justifying it by fucking saying that he's a member of the RUC, the UDR. But in reality, they were killing Protestant people. In reality, they were driving a 500 bomb into a Protestant fucking village. But they made sure there was a fucking RUC station 500 yards up the street. And at this, the statement of admission, the bomb was intended for the RUC.
Here, go on. Let's go on. Let's shoot forward to prison.
Again, they want to be off the street because they believed that we were. And so they used a girl as a woman's supergrass. And that took four of us off the streets for 4.5 months. But the charges were thrown out of court. And all that time there, 4.5 months in remand, because when we were going for bail, they read it out. The prosecution was trying to obviously deny the bail. And they turned around and said, in the 4.5 months these men have been remanded in custody, the Ulster freedom fighters have not once admitted one active responsibility of any operation. So in the 4.5 months that we were in jail, there wasn't a fucking shot fired. What does that tell you? from right through the province, not just West Belfast. I was not to bring that in court. These men have been in jail for remanded in custody 4.5 months, and the UFF has not admitted one single act of fucking responsibility for anyone one incident.
Adair then began talking about his longer sentence when he was sent to prison charged with the directing of terror.
I was in the Crown Room 2 days and we were on the roof when the rooftop protest, which ended resulted in us getting segregation, which was a good thing. And when we got down into the maze, it was a different life and a different world for us. We had our freedom taken. But here I was in jail with my own neighbour, my family. Most of them were all C company. They were all C company, obviously. And we had 2 wings. That's the amount of prisoners we had.
Yeah.
So I was right amongst my family. I'd left my family on the outside, my wife and kids, my mummy and daddy. But here I was with these brave young men from C Company, 2nd Battalion. And I was just like I was back with my family. Because we just showed each other as much commitment and dedication and love as we could, as we did. The dedication we had outside, I dedicated that commitment to them men in a nice way on the inside.
Yeah.
And it just shone right through the 2 wings.
The one account I got is you were making the guts of £5,000 a week dealing drugs in prison.
Listen, that's a load of fucking bollies, listen. You didn't sell drugs in jail. Well, I'll be honest with you. Drugs were smuggled in for people to smoke and people to take the yes, that's the truth. Was drugs sold in jail? Absolutely fucking not. Well, they're sold outside, yes, they were. Why do you sell them in the fucking jail? See, the journalism. Was there drugs taken in the jail? Absolutely. Was there drugs served in the jail? No. They were stored on the lower Shankill, not a drug flat. So we got it wrong. Fucking 90% shit, nonsense, bullshit. Fucking horrendous, horrible.
Yeah, well, I guess go on. Let's go into the Good Friday Agreement then. So we have the Good Friday Agreement is coming. Mo Molam came in and she had to talk to you. She had to get you on her side.
So an incident happened on the outside, and we believed there was too many concessions were given to the Republicans. They were bringing their prisoners back from England. Slowly but surely, wee things, and loyalists were getting nothing at all. So we felt there was too many things getting delivered to the Republicans and nothing to loyalists. So we withdrew our support. Prisoners, yeah. And if we withdrew support, it doesn't work. There's no peace coming. Because we were the men, we were the fighting machine, man that was in jail. We were the backbone, we were the man that was on the street battling. So we said, right, we're pulling out, we're not backing this. So you wouldn't have had a Good Friday Agreement. So that's why Mo Molan took the gamble and came in. We need to talk to these men, Michael Stone, Johnny Adair, Sonny McCrory, Bobby Philpott, and whoever else was there. So she took the gamble. She came in for some criticism for doing so, but it worked.
There's a name you said there, Michael Stone. I think you guys were aligned at one point, but I don't think anymore.
Water on that bridge. Michael Stone was a hero worship him. They still do to this day. Michael Stone was done what fucking no other man would have done. And he done single-handedly, but no man would have fucking would have done in a lifetime. Absolutely not. So as a young loyalist and a member of the UDA, and I seen that in the news, fucking the hairs in the back of my neck stood. I went out of my way because I knew prisoners in the jail. I visited prisoners and I wanted to get to meet with Michael Stone. My wish came true. He sent me to visit. I went and I seen him and I thought it was great. It was like meeting, it was brilliant. He was a fucking legend. Still is a loyalist icon. Then we'll get into jail. I went to visit him a couple of times, have a photograph and all taken with him. Lovely man, brilliant man, hero worship. But then when I went to jail, personalities, and when you're running wings and running leadership in the jail, personalities will clash, and that's what happened with Michael Stone. But listen, I have the utmost respect for the man, really do. Whatever differences we had then didn't mean nothing to me. Now Michael Stone's a fucking legend.
I'll be doing an episode on him eventually, I think.
Good, real good man, a genuine man, but above all, a true fucking loyalist. His personality may not suit us all, but his fucking heart and his balls is second to none.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going on with him on. Never mind his personality or what he said or what he doesn't do. It's what his fucking heart and his balls do. I still to this day the utmost respect for him, and I still will do them a damn day.
The peace process happens, you get out, and then you decide, is this where the LVF comes in, or is that a little bit later?
So, well, I was in the jail, and funny enough, Michael Stone I was lying on top of my bed Saturday morning. Michael Stone came into my cell. Johnny, the shot, that's Billy Wright. And I knew Michael Stone wouldn't tell you a lie like a joke like that or make it a joke out of it. And I knew it was real. So I knew Billy Wright before he went to jail. I knew him when he was in jail. We would correspond with each other. A lot of respect for the man. But he would have been UVF then. And then when the fallout, when they tried to stand up down, they stood him down, he formed the LVF. And I had sympathy. I knew these men. They were good men. They were good UVF men when I knew them. That we had no differences. So I wasn't going to change my opinion because they're no longer UVF, but they're now LVF. So I still kept that comradeship with them.
Yeah.
If you want to call it. And it got stronger as I got out of jail.
Well, you guys had a lot in common. You had a lot in common. You were both kind of very leaders who had very loyal men underneath you, kind of just in different areas, you know?
When I got out of jail, I met more of, like, I knew Billy and I knew Swinger, but then I got to know some of the more newer LVF, and I really liked them. Their dedication, their commitment, and I liked them, and I made a great relationship with them.
But yeah, no, so you get out of prison and then you get shot in 1999. You're at a concert, a UB40 concert or something.
I was shot at the UB40 concerts, but that was drug dealers, Ed McCoy, and the other guy, what was his name? He hung himself, paranoid.
And why did they shoot you? Why did they target you?
Because it was Johnny Adair. Johnny Adair, the Panic Gardens, drug dealers who equally wouldn't like Johnny Adair. Because, you know what I mean? So obviously, they put their hands on a fucking gun and time. It must have been a wee fucking stupid gun, a wee stupid, a damp round. And that's what saved my life. Because the round went into my head and didn't go into my skull. Okay. Between my skull and my skin, and travelled right up and lodged there. And if it had been a fresh round, it would have just took the top of my head off, my skull and all. But because it was a damp round, there was only enough power to pierce my skin and there wasn't enough power for it to go through my skull, so it hit my skull, but it just slipped right up the side and lodged right there. It was a big lump on my head. Jeez. I actually seen the round when they took it out of my head. The police had it in the big fucking test tube. There was actually me and two LVF men and my big for comrade, and they showed us it up the hospital. And I thought, is that a 2-2 round? And he says, no, he said, that's more like a 45. It was a big fucking old washed lead.
Okay, so the Loyalist Day of culture. This is one I have trouble understanding. So,
the Loyalist Day of culture was 10,000 UDA men from all throughout the United Kingdom and further afield. A day of culture, a day like the war was over. Let's bring all our men together, walk up, a parade. So they all walked up the Shankill, and all bonds was invited. So obviously, there was a bondsman among them who were, and I didn't see a flag, but they were carrying a flag with an LVF symbol or something on it, or something related to the LVF. So when it gets to the Rax Bar, which was UVF, a load of drunken thugs, one in particular, Winky Irvin, who's now in jail for fucking 13 months or 30 months, right? And who's now stood down from the UVF for fucking emblazoned and for stealing money, etc., and for whatever he stood down for. But he was the individual who took it upon himself to break into them ranks, hit the fucking man carrying the flag, a kung fu kick, and wrestle the flag from him. Now, for me, any sensible person, that was attack on a UDA parade. If he was so concerned about that flag, even if it was a tricolour, it was none of his fucking business. They should have took it up with the UDA leadership after the parade. Can we sort this out? Why did you carry a tricolour? Or why was there a badge on a LVF flag? No fucking breaking ranks. You break a rank, and remember, you probably had C Company police in that fucking...
Yeah.
And probably in fear of attacks from Republicans. So he should have put his lip and said, well, hold on, let's speak to leadership after their spray and say that we didn't like that. And see, come discipline the bond or discipline the man that was carrying the flag. Don't you fucking break into a rank of fucking 10,000 UDA men and kung fu kick a bond member and try and pull the flag from him. What fucking else do you expect?
This wasn't you trying to take over the Shankill kind of the way that's reported.
I never pulled no fucking flag at anybody. That bastard did. So I was enjoying myself, walking up with all them men, hopping his fucking lorry. I never fucking pulled the flag at anybody. That fucking drunken bastard did. The consequences of his result ended up the way they did, which was fucking sad. But thank that bastard. Don't fucking blame me.
So that turned into a basically UDA UVF feud.
Yes, because they were dealing with the wrong type of people there. These people were seasoned fucking campaigners, and within minutes they'd fucking robbed their ex-bar with fucking gunfire. And then with hours after that, they attacked after attack after attack. And then what had happened the next day, they took me to prison.
Well, that was a good thing for you? There's a quote there saying you say to them, "You've saved my life."
That was a bad thing for me. Why was it good? But to save my life, I didn't care about dying for my organisation. I expected to die. Yeah. I wasn't scared of that. So, we going to jail, me being safe? No, I didn't want to be safe. I wanted to fight for what I fucking believed in and what I stood up for.
But do you want to die by the hands of your own men, you know?
Good UFF men, all dead because of their own.
And why do you think that is? Do you think it's arrogance? Do you think people who want to be in charge and fuck the rest? It's not about the cause, it's about being in charge?
I put a lot of it down to the British intelligence. They control a lot of the organisations, a lot of the leaderships in it. And I believe there's one man that couldn't control, or they couldn't buy his soul, and that was Johnny Adair. So if we can't buy his soul, get his own people to turn against him. How do we do that? We use the hardcore informers that we have working for us, brainwash the rest of the organisation. It's easy done if you have a smart mom with a silver tongue, and that's exactly what they've done with me.
And how long were you in prison then the second time round? This was, 2 years or something?
24 solid months in solitary confinement. Never had a visit for a full year. I was in 24 hours, or 24 months, which is 2 years, on a full prison landed with no other inmates, only me. 24 fucking months. I think the powers that be felt his life's turned upside down. He's isolated, and they put me on the same wing in London where we swing our food. That happened to him. So psychologically, that's the first thing struck me, because I knew a friend that was. And then when I got the courage, I asked to screw me where was Swinger's cell and talk me through it. And he did. Through time, he told me what happened and what he's seen and what he didn't see. But psychologically, I felt sad. I felt we fucking Swinger. And Swinger had a couple of fucking comrades with him there. I was on my own. So that made it that bit harder. But I just got my head around it. But I believe that the powers that be thought, this wee cunt will hang himself. He's not that tough, man. But I came through it. My fucking life was turned upside down. My family run out of the country. My wife was diagnosed with cancer. They wouldn't let me out to see her. Not even handcuffed me or nothing. I never had a visit for a year. Them rats had threatened anybody who goes and visits them will fucking kill them. So the only strength that I had within that jail was the mail I got from all over the world. But when they took me to jail, then they turned to my family and my people who were close to me. So they waited till I was securely locked up, and then they came like rats. Them rats would never have done that had I had my 2 feet in the ground. And never in a million years. Never in a fucking million years. They took me out of jail 2 days earlier and threw me within the mummy guy putting foot in Belfast. They flew me to Manchester. They read me the Rat Act. Threw me on another army helicopter. Threw me to the police station, read me the Rat Act. Don't go near Belfast. You're not allowed. Tell me, right? Okay. The next fucking day, I was in Belfast, and I was at the instigator store, Jim Spence, and I offered him to come down. He pulled the curtain, looked down at me. But I knew the window of opportunity I had was only 5 minutes or 10 minutes, because I knew the cardly bastard would lift the phone. This is how these cunts work. Cards when you get them on their own, and I knew that. So I went, I had a cameraman with me to take the footage. But I knew I couldn't hang about, because the card went, boom, get 2 car loans up right past the doors here.
Yeah.
So I hung about, I was humiliating him, and then I had to make it, because I was reading it out of the fucking door. My family was in England, my wife and my son, and they were in England, and then after a while I stayed in England for about a year, and then I came to Scotland, and I've set up home since it. My big mate Scally, who passed away here a couple of years ago, he lives here, came here, and I've loved it ever since it. I've met good friends in Glasgow and here in Ayrshire. Good loyalists, that genuine fucking guys, and yeah. I like it, I love it, and I love the life here. I'm not surrounded by any fucking dirty, rotten, scumbag, treacherous backstabbers, you know what I mean? Or, more importantly, informers who say we're in the UFF, but we're working for the police at the same time. Nah, don't get me wrong. If I had still been there, I'd have probably been still engaging in community activity. The war's over. There's no threat from Republicans. I'm happy with that and I'm satisfied with that. There is no threat. So I would have put my energy into my community, and my community would have loved that because I love the community. And I know they may, because you're only as good as the support you have. And my support in the lower sector was 100%. I looked after the underprivileged and the poor and the unwell. And I looked up whatever way I could, and they'll tell you that. And that's where a lot of my crack came from too.
But you still go back every couple of months or something anyway. You've gone back a few times, yeah.
3 weeks ago, and maybe people will probably take it the wrong way and panic. No, I forgot about them people. God will sort them people out. They have to put the people in the tournament have to put their heads in the pillow at night. If they've done wrong, they know they've done wrong. But at the end of it, fuck them all, let God, kill them all, let God sort them out.
And has life been good to you in the long run then, in the years since you've gone with your family and everything?
I live here with a 13-year-old boy. I train every day. I just love life. And unlike fools, I realise that we don't live forever. The clock's ticking. So I just make the best of every single day that I'm alive. Because the life that I had, I should have been 6 foot under many times.
I put out a thing on my Instagram for listener questions. So I have a couple of questions and then we can call it if that's okay. Just quick ones. Do you think your actions and leadership served the loyalist community in the long run?
Well, at the end of the day, it was because of my actions as a leader and the stance we took about the Republican movement. I think we kind of slowed them down a lot. Had it not have been for my actions, them Republicans would have done far more to our communities than they've done. But it's the fact that we were going after these people that sort of way slowed them down a bit. And we were going after the top. We were going after the cream of the crop. See, Company War. We were going right in the devil's fucking back garden after these people. They didn't like it. See, I learned when you can psychologically play with these men and go after their top men, when you break them down individually, they're only human, they're only like me. They'll be weak. And that's what I've done. Single them out, we'll go for them and see how they like it. And see when they hear that there's men with AKs or whatever, it scares them because nobody wants to die. So I knew what I was doing. I was getting into the devil's fucking backyard. Did that slow them down a good bit? I believe it did. Without my actions and our actions in C Company, I think that it done a lot more damage to our community than they already have.
And I think I know the answer to this one, but the other one I have here is, do you think there were many members of C Company who were just in it for their own personal game?
No, absolutely not. C Company were, I keep saying this and people go what do you mean? I keep saying, I would see C Company as what the SAS is to the British Army. They were these boys. I've worked with all men throughout each brigade, right? And I'm not discrediting any volunteer. I'm not, because one volunteer is as good as the other, and I treat them all as equal. But what I'm saying about C Company, it was a different class of men I was around. And the respect that they had, and it went 2 ways. I've never seen it before in my life, and I've been in the UDA a long time. I'd never seen a leader, or I had never respected a leader the way these young men respected me and vice versa. I treated these people like my own kids, and they looked up to me like a father figure. But beyond that, there was the bravest UDA men that I'd ever came across. They really were. And I love them, still do love them. They were done. And you know what? They've done what they were done. You're saying, were they in it for money? I can guarantee you, see the men that was engaging in all that military activity, they didn't have money. Yeah, they didn't have money. Yeah. No, they did not have money. Now, don't get me wrong, at the end, they'll say about McCaig, this, that, and the other. Dude, look to McCaig. Because drugs was the new thing. The organisation was doing the new. No better fucking men than people like McCaig to get fucking a few quid of the drugs. So good luck to them. And I said that at the time.
Yeah.
Because when we were against them, drugs weren't the big thing. They were just stuck to the nationalist community. And then we went into the jail, times changed, drugs came along, paramilitary's gotten forward. Stevie, no better man than you to get a good fucking turn out of it. As for other members of C Company, none of them guys didn't. They never had the luxury of fucking getting money, putting their hand easy.
I guess if you look at your timeline with the troubles and the life that you've lived, do you have any regrets?
Yes, the regret I have is making the mistake of allowing myself to be friendly with some of the people that did, who now turns out they were informers. I should have fucking... That's my biggest regret. These people. And it became clear and evident to me when all this happened, who the informers were. I'm not talking about the £20 a week, mate. I'm talking about the men right up at the top level. That's my biggest regret. Biggest regret too was going and sitting with the inner council, because they were fucking monkeys. The men at the time I'm talking about, the inner council, they were fucking monkeys. That was a regret. I should not even have went there, because they weren't even contributing. All they were doing was eating fucking rectangular sandwiches and talking the biggest load of fucking shit. I was engaged in a war. I didn't need to listen to this fucking shit fucking once a week, maybe for 2 or 3 hours. A load of fucking nonsense that didn't contribute fuck all. Yeah. So that was another regret. I fucking regret going to those stupid fucking meetings.
This brings us to the end of my interview with Johnny Adair. The role of this podcast is to listen and to let guests speak in their own words. And when it's in his own words, Adair has framed parts of history quite differently than other narratives. Taking the previous episode and this one together, these two will hopefully give you a better insight into Johnny Adair and his role during the Troubles. We'll leave it there for now, but thank you for still listening after 6 seasons, and I'll see you in the next one. So, we're at the end of the 6th season of the podcast. And yeah, it's wild. Every time I think about finishing for good, more and more stories just come out of the woodwork. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that I'm nearly at 100 episodes. And even, I've already carried out a load of interviews for the next season. And I've had a few sitting on the back burner that I really need to get out, that I'm going to prioritise next season. So you can expect more episodes on unionism, murals, ex-IRA members, ex-governors, ex-soldiers, authors, and loads more. And I've still got a good few people that I'm working on getting onto the podcast too. Right now, the number one guest that I want to get on is Bernadette Devlin McCalliskey. So if you have a way of contacting her, please do let me know. The podcast email is troublespodcast@gmail.com, and please do feel free to reach out. There is a lot of self-promotion coming, so do beware, but I do try and keep it to a minimum throughout the seasons. First off, just a reminder that I do private multi-day tours of Ireland. That's my main job, and I spend most of my summer bringing guests, usually from America, on multi-day tours all around the island of Ireland, staying in some of the most beautiful hotels and showing them Ireland through my eyes. I can design full itineraries depending on what you love, and have been doing a lot of hiking guiding this year, which has been really lovely. Just in May of this year, I brought around a fan of the podcast for a few days and we had an amazing time. I got him in touch with a genealogist, so the first day of the tour was spent looking for his relatives' graves in Roscommon, and we had some fascinating results, especially thanks to locals we were chatting to. Then the following day we picked up an ex-soldier from the British Army who brought us around Bandit Country in South Armagh, and he showed us where he used to be stationed. Then after that, we visited places in Belfast that had significance during the Troubles, and we met up with John Teggart, who lost his father in the Ballymurphy massacre. I do not offer walking tours of Belfast since I'm based in Dublin, but I definitely could do a private one in Dublin, if you wanted to see our fascinating history of republicanism and grab some creamy pints afterwards. In a past life, I actually worked as a pub tour guide around Dublin, but it wasn't a very economic business model because I kept buying rounds, so sometimes I'd end up getting the bus home and be minus €50. Good fun, but it was a disaster. So anyway, my touring company is called The Grand Irish Experience, and you can check out my website, which is thegrandirishexperience.com, or just shoot me an email at oisín@thegrandirishexperience.com. For non-Irish listeners, Oisín is spelled Oisin. It's time to talk about the Patreon. I've been doing it for around 6 years now, and there is a lot in there. And your support, especially in this off-season, is vital to the success of the podcast. I really love the community there, some of which have been with me for years now, and I've even got to meet a few in person. Over on the Patreon, I've nearly 100 videos published with news and updates from Northern Ireland, as well as some Patreon-only episodes, extended interviews, ad-free episodes, and plenty more. I really enjoy also making music episodes, where I have a couple of drinks and get to play my favourite Troubles-related songs. In the off-season, I'm also going to wake up the book club, where we will read a book and then talk about it in a group Zoom chat at the end of each month. The first book is going to be Anne Cadwallader's latest book, and it's a gripping read. So if you like what I do, come on over and join the Patreon, even if it's just for a month or two. And remember to join as a paid subscriber. And if you're on an Apple device, join on your browser instead of through the app, as it's better value. So what else? I don't really like the audio quality of the older episodes, so I was debating re-recording them and adding more details, or correcting some of my terrible pronunciations. I was thinking about leaning into audioscapes, if that's the word, or audio drama. Basically releasing an episode filled with sound effects so the episode plays more like a narrative drama. Is that something you as a listener would be interested in, or would you hate that idea? Let me know. I do also want to do another live show, and it's something I might look into organising in Dublin and maybe London, because I'll be there for CrimeCon in October, so maybe I could try another live show on the off night. I really do need the right guest though. I'm a much better interviewer than I am an interviewee. Yeah, this whole podcasting career is basically like a piece of string. You can take it as far as you want or as short as you want. And there's a lot of self-motivation involved and creativity, which I'm not always great at, which leads me to my other projects. I want to do all of them, but I've had severe trouble actually realising these dreams. After the call out at the end of the last season, myself and listener Eric produced 2 pilots for an Israel-Palestine podcast, but we never really quite got it off the ground. Eric was doing most of the research, and it's a lot to do when you aren't sure if the podcast is going to make you a living or not. I've also had a lot of listeners reach out and say that my voice is great to fall asleep to. So for a bit of fun, I started recording some eerie short story podcasts. I finished one about a pirate trapped on an island full of crabs, but I wasn't sure what to do with it, so I just left it sitting on my computer. But I might wake up that project again. It's a little bit more fun than serious 30-page episodes, so it's a nice little break. My current obsession is Yugoslavia, and especially the siege of Sarajevo, so I was thinking I might be making a trip out there soon enough. But I've no real idea how to start that project. I just think that the fall of Yugoslavia and the wars that happened in the early 90s really do echo the troubles in Northern Ireland, and I find a lot of similarities in how the people remember that time, so it just seems kind of interesting. To be honest, it's hard to know what direction we'll go with podcasting. But I really do love where the Troubles podcast is at this exact moment. That being said, I do hear time and time again that many listeners seem to prefer the narrative episodes as opposed to the interview ones. Which is a shame, because I do seem to be gathering more and more fascinating interviews every year. And I usually try and focus directly on primary source interviews, so people who've lived through moments. And then when it comes to interview episodes with the likes of Johnny Adair, or one I just recorded yesterday with an ex-IRA member. With regards to Adair, some listeners were upset that I would even platform people who have carried out or advocated for acts of violence without holding them accountable. Maybe I should be more aggressive in my interview style. I always said from the very start that I want people to come on and tell their stories and let the listener come to their own conclusions. There really are no easy answers. But after I concluded the interview with Johnny Adair, I decided I wouldn't be happy just putting that out as it was, so I wanted to make the biography episode first, to add a little bit of balance. It's hard to really know how to appropriately approach these episodes. All I know is that I love what I'm doing, I'm making something that I feel is important, and I am delighted that it has resonated with so many people around the world. So yeah, let's leave it there. If you want to respond to any of this word jumble that I've just said, if you want to offer to collaborate or even just to say hi, please do share your thoughts over at troublespodcast@gmail.com. I can be quite disorganised, so if I haven't responded to you in a while, don't be afraid to give me a nudge. Thank you so much for listening this season, and I'll do my best to be back as soon as I can. Thanks, and see you next time.